Stan Lee. Earlier this week, we lost an absolute legend. Think of how different everything in the entertainment landscape would be without Stan. How different comics would be. How different movies would be. And the only reason why I say that is because the entire superhero genre, this whole craze we've had, especially with the MCU, would be drastically different without Stan Lee. We may not even have had an MCU without Stan Lee. Cartoons, video games, everything that drew inspiration from Stan. I just don't know if I can imagine that. Either way, now is not a time for grieving. And yes, we should have seen it coming. He was really old. It's not that much of a surprise, but just knowing we're no longer in a world without Stan the Man Lee is crazy. And it's not like we saw the man turn old. We already came out of the womb with him having gray hair and probably back problems, but despite that, the dude was healthy. He was always full of life right up until the very end. And one of the things he's known for most by the mainstream audience, outside of creating an abundance of amazing characters, was his cameos. And today, I just want to talk about my favorite Stan Lee cameo. More specifically, my favorite animated Stan Lee cameo. Because if we looked at all of his cameos in video games and movies, oh my god, we would be here all day. Although if you ask for my favorite movie cameo, it's definitely his appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Just because the Watcher theory was so out there, yet so crazy and made so much sense, for James Gunn to go and confirm that, it just blew my mind. It was the glue that brought all of his cameos together, at least in the live-action films. And it's more or less canon. And while I've heard he's filmed a lot of cameos to last us for a long time, at the very least, he'll be in Spider-Verse, Captain Marvel, Avengers 4, and Far From Home. It's still weird to think that next time we're gonna see Stan Lee on the big screen or hear his voice, he won't be with us anymore. He won't be able to see the reaction to that, and that's kind of heartbreaking. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself. While his animated portfolio is nowhere near as vast as his live-action on-screen movie cameos, there's still some pretty fun ones here to be found. And my favorite doesn't come from Phineas and Ferb's Marvel crossover, or his cameo in the final episode of 90s Spider-Man, which always tripped me out as a kid and still kind of trips me out now just because it was so random, but yet it just had this surreal charm to it. I can't explain it. I truly can't explain how that scene makes me feel, because even as a kid, I just got like this weird like sense of like being emotional and happy yet really creeped out and just confused. And heck, my favorite cameo of his doesn't even come from Big Hero 6 or the Big Hero 6 animated series, where it's revealed Stan Lee as Fred's father was a superhero named Boss Awesome. Like, that's just amazing to me. And yet that's not even my favorite cameo? Yeah, my favorite Stan Lee cameo doesn't even come from a Marvel property. And some of you may already be knowing where I'm going with this. My favorite Stan Lee cameo came from, and alright, I already hear the pitchforks. I know you're like, okay, I think I know where he's going with this. And after I say it, come on, just stay calm. We're honoring the man here. Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Calm down. All right, let me explain. If you've seen the cameo, you get why it's my favorite one, but if you haven't, let me indulge you, my friend. Teen Titans Go to the Movies took shots at everyone, but especially at DC themselves. And I'm glad that this was the only DC thing Stan Lee has ever made a cameo in, just because it made it that much more special. The plot of Teen Titans Go to the Movies is straightforward. Robin wants a movie made about him so he could feel more legit. And there's a portion of the movie where they go to Hollywood for the first time, so Robin can converse with Jade Wilson and convince her to give him a movie. And there's a familiar looking character in the background, just looking at the camera, looking very excited. And as the perspective of the actual film just continues, the panning shot, this man, Stan Lee, dashes at the screen, and it kills me every single time. To which he goes on to elaborate that he's making his not so subtle cameo, strikes a bunch of different poses like the Spider-Man and the Wolverine, and it's just a great time. Yeah, it's a call to the fact that Stan Lee's cameo is a highlight in every movie. It's not subtle. It used to be back in the day, but over the years it's become more and more of an event in itself. Like in Infinity War, yeah, they just guys came out of the way just because, oh my god, the world is kind of ending in that movie. So of course they weren't gonna play it up for laughs. His cameo in Infinity War was just as fitting as it would have been in, let's say, the early 2000s before everyone caught on to, this guy's in every movie, what's up with that? But the fact they actually got Stan Lee himself to voice it just made it perfect. The fact that he was down to be that self-aware showed how fun this man could be. The fact that it was a DC movie, he doesn't care. In fact, that's part of the joke, because shortly after, he's informed of which film he's in, to which he goes, wait a minute, this is a DC movie, and he's out the door, or so you think, because in the final third act of the movie, when all the superheroes get brainwashed, yada yada yada, I don't want to spoil it for you. I like Teen Titans Go to the movies. Go watch it from your own opinion. But in the midst of this chase, Stan Lee makes a return just to exclaim he doesn't care if it's a DC movie, he just loves making cameos. And I feel like that came from the heart. And in the grander scheme of things, the bigger picture, it goes to show this man didn't have a bias. He doesn't care if he's in Marvel or DC. He doesn't care what he's in as long as he's making people happy, bringing joy to people, making them laugh. And there's this interview that recently resurfaced between him and Kevin Smith, describing the great thing about Spider-Man, and he said that there could be anyone under that mask. White, black, Asian, Indian, it doesn't matter. And that's something that carries on of all of his heroes. I mean, I'm not saying like anyone who's not black should be Black Panther, but when you look at characters like Iron Man or the Hulk, you don't really think about the race. I mean, yeah, Tony Stark himself has become more of a character than the actual Iron Man suit, especially in recent years due to Robert Downey Jr. But Stan Lee really made a lot of his characters accessible to anyone, that anyone could see themselves in. I mean, Spider-Man's the epitome of that. He's the most relatable, down-to-earth superhero, but it just goes to show this man has made a true impact on the world. There will never be another Stan Lee, but there doesn't have to be. He showed us that we can create our own stories. We can be our own superheroes. After all, he was one. Thank you, Stan Lee. I'm glad I got to just gush about your amazing cameo. That's one of the final cameos before you died. I mean, Venom had to come and wreck everything. I mean, like, that cameo wasn't bad, but it wasn't no Teen Titans Go cameo. That being said, everyone at home, what was your favorite Stan Lee cameo? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet to me at AwestruckVox or at Roundtable Vids. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have an awesome day. See you guys. Excelsior.